God, there was a bunch of crazed dogs.
My camera. How about them Giants? How about them Giants? How about them Giants?
Giants fans, what is going on? Welcome to another episode of Draft Talk. This week, we're breaking down wide receivers. Obviously, we took a wide receiver last year with Malik Neighbors. Balled out for us, fortunately. But we are back at it again, and the topic of wide receiver 2 is a significant one. And will they go free agency route? Will they go for the draft? Even if they do get a guy like T. Higgins, will they go for a guy in the draft anyway? There's a lot to discuss. You know, there's a lot of players throughout the draft that are worthwhile discussing, especially for those mid-round picks, which is likely where the Giants would be taking one. So we have an exciting show tonight, and we'll start from the top. We'll go through the guys that are maybe towards the middle or back half of the draft, and then we'll work our way up to the top guys, and then we'll also kind of discuss a little bit Travis Hunter at the very end, his level of play at wide receiver, his impact, whether or not he's better suited to be a wide receiver, and all that. So we got a lot of guys or a lot of information that we've gone through. We've watched a lot of the tape, and we're just excited to get started right away. So first and foremost, let's just welcome in the OG Truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Truth, what's going on, man?
I love that. How you doing, Spartan?
Doing good. Truth, right off the bat, I got one question for you. How do you feel like this draft class of wide receivers stacks up versus last year, which produced and minted a ton of really talented guys?
Oh, yeah. Last year, I have it here written down. 35 wide receivers were taken in the draft last year. On day 3, 19 were taken on day 3.
Wow.
So it was a big draft class. I think this one may not have the impact of the top tier guys like they had last year, but this is a pretty good draft class for wide receiver.
Yeah.
A lot of depth.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to bring in our special guest, New York Giants Rush's own Joker.
We'll miss the fireworks.
There won't be any fireworks.
And here we go.
Sean, what's going on, man?
Oh, there's going to be fireworks.
That's right. When we finally get a second weapon that can even to create more space for Malik Neighbors, there will be fireworks.
Absolutely. There's going to be fireworks tonight on the show, too. I'm sure of it.
Whoa!
Oh, absolutely.
I agree with Truth, though. I think the top end of the wide receivers is not nearly as good as it was last year, but there's more of the middle to later rounds receivers, like the bottom is. There's a lot of depth there and guys that can be, additional pieces there that are good. So, yeah, I do agree with that statement by Truth. So we're off to a good start, Truth.
Okay.
It's funny. I think what makes the wide receiver discussion interesting is that there's a few position groups where finding a gem in the mid or later rounds becomes exceedingly rare. Cornerback is one of them. Like you get past really like the top 20 picks, and it can become a little bit of a crapshoot. Yeah. Wide receiver is not really that. A lot of the top guys are obviously coming out of the top 15. But really, there's a lot of Pro Bowlers and talented wide receivers that do come out of the second round, third round, and beyond. I think back to Metcalf. He was a second-round wide receiver. Yep. That physical traits of his, There's a lot that goes into how these wide receivers were able to perform in college. And the one thing that I look for in particular when we talk about the mid-round guys is who their quarterback was. If they didn't really have a very effective quarterback, there's a good chance that they were held back a little bit. I saw that Michigan State had that situation a couple years ago, not only with Keon Coleman, but actually to do that, I'm drawing a blank on his name, or Jaden Reed, who went to the Packers. I knew how talented he was, but he just got so few reps, because of the system that he was in and everything like that. So we're looking at that stuff for the mid-round guys, and there are gems that come out of it because of that, as well as guys that are blue chip programs for whatever reason, maybe are coming off injury, all those things. So there's a lot of guys we got to talk about tonight.
Yeah, and I think this year, because of the depth of other positions, receivers are going to fall a little further down as well, so you can get some higher round talent in later rounds that maybe you wouldn't have, because there's a lot of depth in some other positions as well. So that's my feeling.
No, I completely
happens
agree.
Every year. Happens every year, guys. Right? You just mentioned one guy, Metcalf. He was definitely a first round talent. Second round.
And so, I mean, look, that we got to discuss how this relates to the Giants, though. Right now, where would you guys rank? We have several needs. Sean, we've gone back and forth about the needs. Where would you guys rank the need for wide receiver 2?
Go ahead,
Sean. No, Sean, I'll let you go. Go ahead.
I would not rank it as high as the other ones, the other needs that I have, but it's definitely a need. For me, it's more of a need that I would address in later rounds or through free agency, because they did go with Malik and Wandale in the draft already. So that's where I'm kind of looking with that. And Hyatt, right. So I'm looking I think that wide receiver room needs a vet in there, because the one vet is not going to be back, and I would like to see a different vet come in that can help that wide receiver room. So, it's more towards the bottom of the list of needs for me. But I definitely feel that wide receiver 2 is a need.
What about you, Truth? Where would you rank the need?
Yeah, same thing. I rank it somewhere. I have six positions, and I think probably Sean would agree, and you probably would too, Smart. And we have, in no particular order, I got the defensive line tackle, I got the cornerback, offensive line, you got wide receiver, running back, safety. I mean, there's a lot of positions here. I got them around 4, position 4. And I agree that we do need a veteran in here, but you don't want to spend an arm and a leg to get one, because unless we restructure contracts, I don't know if they'll do all of those guys that you mentioned. We mentioned about them, the Thomases and who else? Lawrence, and who's another guy you can do it?
Okereke, yeah, those.
I can't see Shane doing all of them. He may do 1 or 2. You don't want to have a big chunk like $20 million at least to go to your wide receiver. So I don't know. It will be somebody who's probably a little bit mid to low tier, who, I think the last year they brought that guy in, Robinson. Is that who they brought in? Is that the guy I'm thinking of? They brought him in.
Allen Robinson, but they didn't keep him around. Yeah.
Hoping to catch lightning in a bottle. I think something like that you're going to see, and I still think they're going to draft 1, 2. I don't see them not doing that, but it would be like Sean said. I think it'll be a day 3 pick.
Well, when you talk about 35 receivers getting taken last year, I mean, there's 32 guys selected in each round plus a little bit of change because the comp picks, that goes to show. I mean, generally on average, a team gets a wide receiver in almost every draft. I do totally agree that, the problem is this is the draft after all, and you get a wide receiver in the second round, third round, really third round. I doubt they're even going to get one in the second round. It's still a crapshoot. There's no guarantee any of those guys end up balling out. Whereas with, with free agency, you do have a better sense of what the player is going to bring to the table, right? T. Higgins is a big name. You hear that a lot. Cost-wise, Truth, I got to be honest with you, the numbers are actually looking around that ballpark that you feel uncomfortable with, which is around $20 million per year for T. Higgins. Sean, if I'm wrong,
probably more, probably a little more, right?
I think it's going to be more like $28 million for him with that. So if it was $20 million, I'd be very comfortable with $20 million.
For him.
28. I mean, listen. Here's my thought. I think they're going to have around 80 million, maybe 90 million when all is said and done. Cap's going to go up about 20 million next year, I believe, is the projection. They restructure Okereke and Dexter.
There's four deals they can restructure and pay them.
And get So I think they'll have enough money to do it and get a couple of guys in there. It's all going to be dependent on who the quarterback is. So my feeling is we know they got to get D-line. We know, whatever else they need to add. But if you're going to draft a quarterback and a young guy, having a solid vet wide receiver and having Malik Neighbors is a really good way to go. Again, I'm not saying it's absolute what I want, although I did mention about T. Higgins before. But I think it makes sense when you look at what other teams have done that have had success. They've gotten those wide receivers to help out the young quarterback. So if that's the route they go, I'm okay if they go wide receiver.
Right. And you got to keep – go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I say because there's other free agencies and there's draft where they can fix other needs as well. So it's not like they're limited and if they get only one guy, like they can only send one guy in free agency. That's not the case to me. So
Yeah, and you got to keep in mind if they are going to get a quarterback in this draft, you got to really Shane has to really get the offensive line, get more pieces there. They did good this year. They did better than the year before. We saw improvement, but they're not done yet. They still have to do a little more.
Yeah, and I think they're going to be very aggressive in free agency, and I think they're going to address what they need to address in the draft, and that's fine. I mean, my feeling is this: I don't feel that every pick in the draft has to be BPA. I don't know how you can build a team where every pick is BPA, right? Like you got to have a balance of both. So that's my take, which I know isn't a popular one.
Well, fortunately, they're in a position where they can go a little bit more BPA because this is not a popular take amongst the Giants. I actually think there's fewer holes throughout our team now than there even were when we were in the playoffs a couple of years ago. I know that doesn't really make sense, but you look at really what's weighed down the team last year is the ineffective pass game. Yeah. So wide receiver's not the issue there. Offensive line's more solidified. They have one spot they have to address, the other, competition at center and then depth throughout, right? So that's a different state. We have a wide receiver one. Tracy played effective running back. We need a running back. Like you go through the actual depth chart, and I think there's about 7 legit needs. You can get a lot of that via free agency, and so for every pick here, we don't have to feel forced to go best player available as much as we did in like 2022, 2023 or last year, where we're generally getting guys to start day one. So I'm with you, Sean. Let me ask you this then. There's one last question before we get to all the different players. How would you like Neighbors to be complimented? This can be free agency or via draft. Like, what do you guys look for in a complimentary wide receiver? Would you want somebody that possesses skills that may not be Malik's strengths? Or would you just kind of like to go with any good receiver, even if they are similar in dynamics to Malik? How would you best approach that?
Go ahead, Truth. You start this time.
Listen, if you can get another talented player as good as Malik Neighbors on the other side of the field, why not? Whether it's in the draft or free agency, if they can afford getting T. Higgins and they're fine with it, I'll be happy with that. But I don't think that's going to happen. But I just don't want. I'll be honest with you, I don't want a little smaller wide receiver on the outside. I got a little more size. I would, still have the explosiveness, but. And they're out there. I mean, when we go over these guys, there's a whole bunch of them who I think would be good fits for the Giants.
Yeah, there's a couple guys with good height, good range, and everything like that.
Yeah, and I would say, to me, Malik can do it all. He just didn't have the quarterback that he could utilize his skill set. That was the problem. He can run the deep route. He's a vertical threat. I mean, we saw that a couple times, and then they kind of got away from it because they wanted to get him the ball, and they knew he wasn't going to get it deep. So I think anybody will compliment him. Sure. And I think when you look at Daboll's history, as limited as it might be, he doesn't have a big body, 6'4", 6'5" receiver. Like he likes those guys that create separation. He likes 6 foot, 6'1" in that range. So, but I think anybody that's going to take advantage of the fact that Malik will start getting double teamed, or it can also help him from not getting double teamed, I think is what you have to do. So it's not so much needs to complement or do opposite. We just need another receiver that can really tear up and get yardage and do what they need to do to make Malik an even bigger weapon and them a weapon as well.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways they can go, obviously, but at the end of the day, you get a good wide receiver, no matter what the strengths are, how much they match Malik. It creates separation. Just do what you can to go out there and be a good wide receiver. I think. I'm not going to name any names right now. I do think the Giants have gone for a couple guys that are specialized in a particular area, and then they don't really, they're not out there a lot because they're not, consistent answers at the position.
Right.
So
right.
Let's get right into the players then. Again, guys, we're doing things a little differently this year. So previously we start at the top and work our way down. We're going to start our way at guys that are a little bit more mid-talent range in the draft, and then we'll work our way up to McMillan and then discuss Travis Hunter from there. So first and foremost, I want to hear you guys' thoughts on Kyron Lacy. So he's a Louisiana State player, and obviously, the wide receiver factory at LSU has been phenomenal over the past few years. Does this guy possess that ability to, did he change the dynamics of the defense as he was opposed against in the same way Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas did. I'd argue probably not. I didn't quite see that. But look, let's go over his strengths. Elite route runner. He's very excellent release skills in getting off of guys. And he's very good in the red zone, too. He was a really, really strong tool for that red zone offense. He did have a phenomenal quarterback, which, by the way, I'm never holding that against a wide receiver. Last year, Neighbors had Jaden Daniels. I won't hold it against him. I was just going to say if they had a bad quarterback, then we could look at, okay, maybe they were held back. Probably not the case here. But overall, he's a pretty good wide receiver for LSU. Knots on him, mechanics, turning speed, and, well, here's the big one. He just got arrested for a hit and run. So curious to hear your guys' thoughts.
Well, I just heard that one. I didn't I didn't know.
Yeah,
big one. Negligent homicide and felony hit and run is the charges that he got arrested for. So, I mean, it's similar to what Jalen Carter had, I think, or I don't know if charges went against him, but it's a similar type thing. So he'll drop far, I think. Teams may take a chance, but I don't know. It's risky with him. So
yeah, wow. I mean, I had him as a early day 3 pick. So this could be you say possibly late day 3 to a UDFA pick. Is that what you might?
I mean, with that arrest and whatever happens with it, I mean, that's when you got a felony hit and run and negligent homicide. I mean, that's pretty serious. So
those are two pretty bad things.
Yeah. So I don't know. He may not get drafted. I don't really know at this point. Yeah. They're still waiting on more details. I just know he was arrested. But, I mean, one of his other strengths, I mean, he's a monster in that 10 to 20-yard range. So that's really where his strengths are. So that could be somebody, and again, if we're talking Giants, it could be somebody that's a nice compliment to Malik, who can, work that middle of the field, but it's also technically what Wandale is going to do as well. So he's not, he doesn't have that long speed, the deep speed. So again, he's a precision route runner. I mean, he's very polished route runner, which is always good. It's always going to help in the NFL. So, I mean, I kind of almost think of him like Ladd McConkey was. He wasn't blazing speed, but he always got open. He was a great route runner. So
a little bigger.
A little bigger. But that's kind of how I see him. But again, I don't know how his draft stock. I think it's going to plummet.
Yeah, I think it's a moot point right now because what you just said about this homicide and what he just happened with the. I don't think it even matters.
Part of the issue here too is like it's one thing if we were talking about a day one guy that now is becoming a value pick, like is becoming that Carter situation with the Eagles. Like they have the chance to plummet, and then you can get a value pick, but who knows what their trial is going to look like. Unfortunately, when you're a day 3 pick, that kind of really almost ruins it for you.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, look, we'll see what happens with that. Obviously. But I think it's fair to move on to the next player then. So this is one dude that's really intriguing to me, Savion Williams out of TCU. The thing I like about him is he's got really, really good athletic ability for being 6'5" and 225 pounds. I do not have a measure on his 40-yard time, but he did have very explosive speed when it came to turning, when it came to maneuverments. It's very fluid. The one thing that gives me a little hope that he has upside, because if you look at his numbers, they're not that strong. But he was used in a very odd way at TCU, like mainly in like these weird like wildcat running situations. I didn't like it, but a lot of TCU fans and followers and commentators of TCU football have alluded to poor offensive coordination in the past 2 years and just complete misuse of the players. That gives me hope because we're looking at a guy that's mid-round, but certainly could be a day 3 pick, and the question is, can he be that guy that's out there constantly balling out on the outside? I'd be very intrigued. So if they got this guy, like, I know with pick 4 or 5, I'd actually be very happy because he's really dynamic and really athletic. But if you look at that play right there, that's exactly the kind of play that I'm talking about. It's a very bizarre use of him, almost like in a running back setting. And I really do wish that I just saw more of him on the outside. Again, 6'5", 225. And just a freaking nature when it comes to the athletic ability. So I really like him a lot. Of course, you can't reach for a guy like this. I'd rather have a proven resume, but want to hear your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'd say just real quick is that I actually like that play call to utilize his skill set, that they use him as a running back, and which is interesting because the comp for him is Cordarrelle Patterson, and that's how he gets used a lot. So I think for where he kind of the worry for me for him is he's got a limited route tree, and that definitely worries me at the next level because we've seen it with Jalen Hyatt, who has a limited route tree. Nice red zone target though, no doubt about it. He's very athletic. The problem there with him is that he from what I read, the research I've done, he tests faster, but his game speed is slower than what he actually runs. So that's a concern there too. But great size with that.
Yeah, I mean, look, he made the freaks list, number 56 on that.
Well, you make the freaks list for truth, man. I mean, you are a freak when it comes to athletics, man.
That intrigues me. So kind of like what Shawnee says, he's a superior athlete, so we want to see how that translates on the football field at the next level. But I don't worry about his stat line because he has another very capable wide receiver also on this team we're going to be talking about pretty soon, who's a pretty good player, who I think would be a good NFL player when he gets drafted. So I like this kid. I do. I like the versatility. Again, we got to see how he translates in the NFL level. But look at that. He throws the football, too.
Yeah.
Well, he played quarterback.
He was quarterback, right?
Yeah, he was a quarterback, yeah. So, again, it's a gadget guy, which isn't bad. Cordarrelle Patterson made a pretty good career in the NFL. So,
right. And listen, I wouldn't mind a day 3 pick like this. To me, that's not a reach. A day 3 getting someone like this, I'd be intrigued.
How about QB1 and wide receiver? Can he just throw the ball to himself?
Bugs Bunny, right?
That's right. We'll get Travis Hunter to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, corner and wide receiver, and we'll just do this exact same thing with Savion Williams. Everybody wear 2 hats. Yeah. All hands on deck.
And again, with his limited route tree, it also makes sense why they used him the way they used him as well in the Wildcat out of the backfield. So, that smart by them.
Right.
All right. Yeah. Well, we can go over to a guy that I know a lot of people out there like out of Stanford, Alec Ayuminer. Now I really don't know if I pronounced his name right, but the thing that that people like about him, he has all those fundamentals down. He's a really good route runner. He is a terrific athlete with good athletic ability. Can beat man coverage very well. Not a big yards after catch guy, but he does make big plays there in the outside and is a threat in the end zone. Not even just when he's out there playing, in the red zone. I mean, he is effective through and through. Concerns: he does have an injury history. The ball skills aren't perfect. He had some bad drops throughout the past couple of years. At quarterback overall, he didn't really have a very effective one. So to me, I do like that. But of course, you still have to have some sort of resume. But want to hear your guys' thoughts on him too.
Well, he's got good straight line speed, 4.42.
Yeah, he's got a 4.4. Yep.
Yep, 4.42. He's got very good vision. This is what I saw when I watched the tape on him. Good quality route runner. Yards after the catch, I liked. With him, he did tend to use his physicality instead of technique sometimes. So that's something that needs to be cleaned up a little bit at the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we talked about this, but just to reiterate, if he's tough, but he's a great blocker, which is good, which is definitely needed at the next level to be able to block as well. He's had a little inconsistency with his separation, which could hurt him, at the NFL level. His comp, what I see looking around, was Juju Smith-Schuster, which, is not a bad comp, not a great comp, but not a bad comp. So another later round guy that if you can develop and has got the traits there, not a bad guy to try to see if you can develop. And again, one of the things that Daboll has preached is his receivers being able to block, because that's why some other guys haven't gotten on the field.
Yeah. Real quick, I do want to bring one thing up. Authentic is actually stopping by in the comments section to tune in, because we were going back and forth today about some of the wide receivers. He actually sent me all of his notes, and I know he does a lot of analysis on the top wide receiver picks. And yeah, it's true. His 2023 stats were, and performance was a little bit more impressive. But again, he was injured this past year, and that does factor into it a little bit.
Yeah.
But he is well regarded by the I mean, not just Stanford fans, but just overall in his body of work. He was very effective for a team that otherwise was really bad. So, curious to see how this guy falls. I mean, Truth, what do you have him projected as round wise?
I got late to mid to late round 3. That's what I. And again, Sean mentioned this early in the podcast. We could see players drop a little bit because the other talent, other positions. So, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if he went early day 3, or it wouldn't shock me if it mid day 2.
Yeah, could kind of go anywhere. So, guys, we're going to talk about another TCU guy. And Truth, this isn't the first time where we've had a situation where there's multiple colleges represented at a certain position group, right?
No,
TCU.
Yeah,
we've had a couple, and especially with running back last year. You remember that?
Yeah.
With Jack Beach or Beck, sorry. He's another wide receiver at a TCU with a different dynamic of skills than Savion had. So this is more of a bigger frame dude. Good route runner. He's very physical. Hard to tackle, but does get and surprisingly gets good yard after catch, even though his speed isn't very effective. And he's very good at contested balls. But where the knocks tend to be are around his speed and around his limited separation. Fair enough. What are you guys' thoughts on him? Because it's a bit of a different shake at wide receiver.
Yeah, well, one thing I do like about him, because, as somebody who was a former wide receiver coach, I love when receivers use their hands and catch with their hands. So he does have strong hands. He's well with the contested catch. I think that he's a good run blocker, which, again, these are things that are going to help you at the next level that they want to see. I'm not as high on I feel like I'm the negative guy here for these first couple, but the comp to him is Cedric Tillman, which isn't bad, but he just kind of had that 1 year of production, which kind of hurts him a little bit. But yeah, like you said, the speed, but the fact that he is strong hands, and he is a savvy route runner are things that can definitely help him. Not a guy I'm necessarily high on, but pretty good kid, pretty good receiver.
Yeah, he played inside and outside a lot. I guess TCU does that. They like to be creative. Same with Williams. They moved him around. So, he's a strong kid. Great, another good athlete here.
Yeah, you saw that cutback there, right? Like, that was the one play that I saw earlier. It was a very strange cutback, but that was, that's not an easy thing to do. And I like that he's able to do that.
And, at the pro level, I can't see him having the breakaway speed. Obviously, he'll be more possession type of wide receiver, but I think he'll be a reliable one. With the like Sean said, he has very good hands. So I think he'd be. I guess it's a wait and see how he translates to NFL level and what team gets him. That's important too.
All right, well, let's move on to Pac-12 guys. Unless Pac-12, Big Ten. Jesus, I know.
I was wondering Pac-12. I'm thinking.
God, yeah, damn. That didn't sound right coming out of my mouth, even though they won the Big Ten. So I got to give Oregon props there. So this is a little bit more of an interesting case with Tez Johnson. Extremely dynamic, extremely versatile. I know wherever he ends up, he's going to be the punt returner. He's going to be very effective at that. But we obviously have to focus on his wide receiver skills. He has great direction change ability. And again, extremely dynamic, very athletic. The knocks. Let's start with this one. Craig will go insane if we draft him. He's a small dude. He's very, very lightwait. So if Craig goes nuts when we get Wan'Dale Robinson.
Very small. He's smaller than Robinson.
Yeah, I'm going to be worried. Craig's going to need a straitjacket if we draft this dude. But, yeah, I mean, look, we're dealing with a smaller guy. He does lose some contested balls, which is one of the knocks on him. And overall just has a relatively higher percentage of drops from what I was reading. But want to hear your guys' thoughts, not only just on him, but like these types of wide receivers in general.
He's a burner. I mean, slants, quick outs, just let him get the ball and run with it. That's his game, and that's how Oregon is. That's how they were last year. That was the knock on Bo Nix. He doesn't go vertical. The short pass and let the receivers run the football. That's what they do.
But you saw right through it, Truth. You were the one that's like, oh no, actually, I kind of like Bo Nix. And I'm like, truth. We need to worry about viewership here. That's not a popular opinion.
Well, he got in the right system. That was big for Bo Nix. Getting the right system. But
real quick, Authentic's out there. Yeah, he weighed 157 pounds this week.
Oh my goodness,
guys! Wow. I was 157 pounds by 8th grade. That's not a good thing. But just a comparison. Granted, I'm not a dynamic wide receiver. So
there is a guy in the NFL. He played at Louisville. I can't remember his name. He's in the NFL now. About the same size as this kid, and he's having a pretty good NFL career. He's not going to be your all pro, but not everybody has to be an all pro. So, there's a place for this kid in the NFL.
So here's a guy I'm actually high on. I know he's light. I know he's this, but here's the thing, and this is what impressed me. Number one, he has been dominating at the Senior Bowl all week. All week, nobody can guard him, right? He is elite speed. Mm-hmm. He actually said that he has a real good shot to get after Xavier Worthy's 40 record at the Combine. And nobody said that's crazy when Daniel Jeremiah and the other guy's name is Charles Davis. They didn't say no. That's ridiculous for him to say. So I don't care how light you are. When you got that elite speed, it's tough to be caught. So he is. The things about him that really impressed me. Again, he's a great yak guy, which I mean the acceleration that he has. He's got great body control. He does small catch radius, but again, the size he is, of course, he's going to have that, right? But with that speed that you have, like I'm good. I'm high on this guy, and if you can get open and you can make DBs at the Senior Bowl look bad, like really bad, you can do well in the NFL. And I'll be curious to see what his 40 time comes out to be at the Combine. So I'm definitely high on this guy, regardless of his size.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Obviously, it's concerns with every player we're going to talk about in tonight's thing, and here is obviously his size and durability, but he is a great talent. He is.
And Sean, you're a wide receiver coach. I do also know how important it is when you have a guy that's that fast and that athletic to do those routes where you're kind of opening up for the other wide receivers, right? They're doing the full on outs, and then everybody else, it clears up space a little bit with the safeties because they have to take so much focus on the guys running those routes. And we'll take off Malik Neighbors. And look, that's part of it too. Like you get another good wide receiver on this team, or somebody that has that ability. You're only going to make Malik Neighbors better, and Malik Neighbors is only going to make this guy better.
Yeah, and if you get this guy in space, he can get to his full speed pretty quickly. Well, again, with the acceleration that he has, you get him in space, it's going to be hard to bring him down. So it is a nice one. Again, I'm not saying the Giants should definitely take him, but I do like him. I think he can do a lot of things. And listen, as coaches used to say to me all the time, you can't coach speed. So if you got speed, man, you got elite speed, track speed, you'll do well.
Yeah. And there's a good chance the Giants won't draft him. I don't think. I think they want to get a little bit more size.
Yeah. They don't want another Wandale-sized guy. But listen, don't be surprised if he ends up in Denver because he lived with Bo Nix, so they view him as a brother to Bo. So don't be surprised if he ends up in Denver and just kills it in Denver.
Yeah. I don't even know who Denver has as their slot receiver. Do you know?
Is it Franklin? Was he playing the slot? I can't remember. I know Franklin's there, and he got rubs. I just don't remember if he was
Franklin, the kid they drafted last year. Franklin.
Yeah, he was out of Oregon, so he was Nix's teamate that was there. So yeah,
Sean Payton's just trying to rebuild Oregon, pretty much. That's what he's doing. Players and making it 2.0.
Right? Like, it makes sense.
Offense is elite. I can't knock Oregon's offense. They're so dynamic. It's hard for any Big Ten team to compete with them. Purdue's not going out there and putting the smokes on them.
Yeah.
So. Yep. Awesome. Yeah. So this is one dude that I'm really excited to talk about. Tay Felton, out of Maryland. I did watch him play against Michigan State, and he was really driving me nuts because he was doing an outstanding job. And it's like, we had an okay defense this past year, not great, but they were having struggles containing this dude. And I was able to see that, this guy's pretty effective. Flash forward several months, I realized he's one of the better wide receivers in the draft class. And then watching all of his highlights and tape, each and every snap, what I really liked is, this guy has very good athletic ability. He's really good at contested balls. And it's not just like speed with the routes. It's also like the ability he has to like maneuver himself. He's very good with that, right? So tight space, very effective. He's a good red zone threat too. And he's one guy that quarterback-wise, Maryland had a decent one. Not a guy that's going to go to the NFL or anything like that, but I think he's going to be more enabled if he goes to that next level and be a little bit more on par with the other teams. So I'm curious to see what he does at the NFL level. But we got a guy, again, 6'2", a lot of height with the athleticism in this year's class, and that's what I like. But I really do like this guy. I think he can be a very phenomenal wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, he's a kid that got timed not very favorable as in terms of speed-wise, but he plays faster on the football.
What do you have for his time? I got a 4. I had that he had a 4.4.
Well, I don't know. I had a 4.6 on my reports.
Yeah, and I saw in all the research that I did. I didn't look at 40 times, but it says he lacks elite speed.
Yeah,
okay.
But he runs good routes and he plays faster, and we're going to see a lot of that throughout all our draft shows. We're going to see a lot of guys who didn't time well, but they play faster on a football field, and that's something that I think is overlooked, and why guys become sleepers or guys become better players than what we thought. Because they're football players. They don't play by the numbers. Not every time and Shawnee, I know you know this. Not everybody plays by the numbers and are good or bad by the numbers. It's how you play on a football field.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jerry Rice ran a slow 40 time, and he had great game speed. So if his speed looks good on film, although, again, they say he does lack the elite speed, but he is a big game producer, which is what you want to see. Like, that is a positive. He's got body control. He's a late bloomer, so that's kind of holding him down. So you wonder, okay, can he develop? Can he be what he needs to be at the next level? And then I like the comp, though. I mean, the comp is Chris Olave that I've seen going around for him, and that's not a bad comp for him. So,
no, not at all.
Yeah.
And there's a good point. He's gritty too. He does not care to get physical with the cornerbacks. He loves doing it.
Yeah. And again, big game producers, we'll take those, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, moving on then to let's see. This game. Yeah, and guys, for those who don't know, Authentic does do film work for Maryland's football program. Their head coach actually got an interview with the Jets, which surprised a lot of people, but he's built a decent program at Maryland. It's not easy to build one there. So, they have produced guys to the NFL. Obviously, we have Banks on the team and whatnot. But so the next guy I wanted to talk about is Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. So here's a guy that just looks like a natural wide receiver. He's tall, 6'3", 217 pounds, and got that wide radius, that big frame wide receiver, and very good hands that you want to see out of a guy like that, right? Like almost, comp. I'm not going to go there comp-wise because he doesn't have this athletic ability, and I'll get into that. But like he's got that Calvin Johnson kind of like build, if you will, and he goes out there and plays pretty effective ball for Iowa State, who has a pretty effective program. The knocks on him, like I said, explosiveness, not all there, and the fluid movements. That's the thing that he really certainly doesn't have that like holds him back from being that type of player. But want to hear your guys' thoughts because like when I see him out there, he does seem like a true, big frame wide receiver.
It's interesting because Darren Jeremiah was just talking about him today because he's not on his top 50, but he said this is a guy that's just outside his top 50 right now. Mm-hmm. So he does have very good body control, which is helpful. He runs with tempo, so the tempo in the routes is very important because some guys can only just run fast. He can use different speeds to, in his route running, which is good. He's got a great catch radius and the football IQ and quick feet. Like those are things when you talk about like you want a receiver to have football IQ, especially when teams are running zone defenses. He understands how to get open against zone, right? Like, so those are things to me that stand out. And again, as a route runner, if you have tempo and you have burst, I think you can be successful at the next level.
Yeah, he very well in the 50-50 contested catches. He does a good job in traffic, catching the ball. Again, translates again to a red zone threat, a good size. And you guys all said these things, good size. More possession, wide receiver. It won't be a vertical threat at the NFL level. but very, very comparable and very suitable wide receiver in my mind.
Yeah, I'd be very happy if the Giants walked away with him. And Sean, to your point, like I agree, like they don't need to necessarily compliment Malik Neighbors that does have like opposite skill set from him. But I think this is an example where it's like, well, this in particular would be nice, that framework, that end zone threat. Not to say that Malik is bad at that. He's great at all those things, but he does add another dynamic to the wide receiver room that I would appreciate for the Giants.
Yeah, I know. Just talk about Malik Neighbors. One thing he didn't have in his game last year, which he will, I think, next year, is vertical. He didn't really have that. We didn't have the quarterbacks to give him the ball like that, and he can easily be a vertical wide receiver for us.
Yeah, I think it's because for us as Giants fans, like we always liken back to Plaxico Burress, that tall wide receiver, but I just think it's tough at times with this style of offense. Like you really need to have a receiver that gets separation, that gets open. So if they're a big body, but they don't have great separation, they don't get open, then I think it is tough because now unless we get a quarterback that's going to do contested catches, I don't know how much Daboll likes contested catch throws. So that's the other thing to kind of keep in mind where we're like, oh yeah, we got to get somebody tall. I mean, I fall in that habit too. Like I'd like to have a 6'4" receiver, right? But got to have a guy that can create separation and get open. So
yeah, because you can't let like a bias determine what kind of wide receiver you get, right? Like, oh, I love the tall wide receiver, but you got to be able to be a wide receiver just bringing it at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, because Plaxico could run the deep route, right? Like he could hit the deep ball. So it's not just about the size. It's okay. Can they run the deep route? Can they do those things and be that nice compliment? So yeah, but it's a kid that again I think he'll rise up the draft boards the more it goes on and after the combine.
I mean, look, we had Ramses Barden, right? We know what it's like to have a tall, useless wide receiver,
right? Wow, that's a blast from the past.
I know. Look at Spartan going back on that.
Right? Ramses, my guy.
We got a lot of mid-round draft pick failures for the last 15 years. We can go all day here, guys. We got lots to choose from.
Yeah.
Picky year, any year.
I mean, and how tall was Nix? Nix was what, like 6'2"? He wasn't that tall.
Yeah,
I thought he was 6'2".
Yeah, so we had Cruz, Manningham, and Nix that
6'1".
weren't all.
He wasn't that tall. I thought he was taller than he was.
So those three weren't tall. It was really just Plaxico that we had. I mean, Tuber was what, 6'2", 6'3", Tuber?
6'3", I thought. Oh, 6'2". Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Plaxico's really the only tall receiver we've ever had. So when you look at it, the most success we have is the guys that are like 6'2", 6'3", and under.
Mm-hmm. Athletic ability comes into play, right? I mean, look, we'll get to McMillan. We'll talk about him, and he is a guy that's tall but has all those dynamic abilities, right? We're not seeing that necessarily with Higgins, but still, overall, good wide receiver.
Absolutely.
So here's a guy that had a better 2023 than 2024. He had a foot injury in 2024 that kind of derailed him. But to be completely honest with you, I mean, that's where you kind of can get value out of the draft, is if there's a dude that had an injury that hindered the rest of their year. Jalen Royals, overall, he's just a very dynamic wide receiver and has those fluid motions that we were talking about earlier that we felt that Higgins lacked. I think he's a very talented wide receiver overall. Just like the main knock on him is, needs better ball control and better body control. But kind of want to hear your guys' thoughts on him too. And really maybe your guys' thoughts in general, like if there's an injury situation, how they should assess that moving forward. I mean, I feel like you can recover from a foot injury, but, depends.
Well, that's why they have all these medical evaluations on these guys during the combine. So this kid, good speed, elite speed, 4.38. That's what I got on him. Creates separation. What I like about him, he catches the ball in traffic. He's not afraid to go up in the middle, and he's really the primary wide receiver they had on their team. So when you look at opposing defenses, they will key in on him. So he had a good career. He had a good year. I had him. He had 55 catches, 834 yards. Very respectable. So, and he's got good hands. So I like him.
Yeah, I'm high on this guy too. I think he'd be a great fit for the Giants. Again, with that, he's got that track speed, which will go well. He's got good body control, fluid movement. So I think I think with the style that and type of receivers that Daboll seems to prefer, this is a guy that would fit right in there. And again, you have that elite speed because we got a guy with elite speed that can't do everything else. So I think it would be a nice replacement to add, somebody like this. So I am pretty high on Jaden Royals, and it's a guy I would like to see on the Giants.
Yeah, and we talked about how many guys were picked last year, and I think this year we're going to see a lot of wide receivers taken on day 2. That's just my guess. I'm just looking at all these guys and where they're projected. And, the Giants, do we know if we're going to get anybody, is Catholic coming back definitely now?
Well, McCarthy's out of the running for the Saints head coach. He's going to wait till next year, so it does increase the odds.
And what about Brown? What about Brandon Brown?
Yeah, he's here. Brandon Brown's back.
He's back.
Kafka, I think, will be back unless Kellen Moore turns down the Saints job. I think the Saints want Kellen Moore. So Kafka will be back unless Kellen Moore decides he doesn't want it.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Kafka got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So there goes that extra picks.
Yeah. And I think if he's going to be a round 2, if Royals is going to be a round 2 guy, I don't think we can go round 2 with a receiver. I think, again, depending on the offseason. But
round 2, day 2, I meant. Not round 2.
Yeah. I think some people think round 2, but I don't think he's a round 2 guy. If he's a later round, that's good. But if he is a round 2 guy, if Giants, especially they go quarterback in round 1, you got to go D-line in round 2, in my opinion. So I don't think you go, a round 2 pick on a receiver, unfortunately.
No, I think he'll definitely go back, get pushed back because of the other talented people on the board, players and positions.
All right. Well, how about this dude out of Miami? Had Cam Ward throwing him the ball, was the better receiver there, if you will. So here's a dude that is a very physical wide receiver. He's got phenomenal hands. He's a great competitor when it comes to going against the cornerbacks. Great body work to get challenging balls too. I hope when they do the highlights, you'll see some of that. And hard hits. This is the one thing that's important too. Hard hits do not cause him to drop the ball so much, which is very good to see because he does get rocked with a lot of the routes that he ends up running. I think personally he'd be a very good fit for Daboll's offense for the route tree that he tends to go with. Obviously, Daboll calls certain plays for his personnel, so we don't really know how that would affect it. But I like Xavier Restrepo and kind of want to hear your guys' thoughts. It's a little bit of a different dynamic than we've talked about for the last few guys.
Well, I think it's your turn, Sean. You can go first.
Okay, all right. He's a slot mostly, so he's going to be a slot receiver. So he's I think for him he's a really good vision. The knock on him is he does body catch at times, and that is a concern for me because I don't like to see guys that body catch because it doesn't translate to the NFL level, in my opinion. You drop too many passes that way. But I do think where he does have great concentration, he does have, he gets to, good catch point from there. And he is decisive and he does have that quickness and agility. Again, the fact that he's slot only depends on what you're going to do with Malik because Malik was in the slot on the outside. So if he can only play slot, does that limit him? Again, if we're talking potential for Giants. But the body catching, that is a concern for me. And that's something that, for me, knocks guys down in order.
Yeah. I mean, good player. Similar size actually to Wan'Dale Robinson, and I just don't
be heavier than Wan'Dale though, because he's 100. He's 5'10". He's short.
I don't think he's. I think Wan'Dale was about 190 or so.
Oh, all right. Yeah, he's only.
Yeah, Wan'Dale's bigger than people realize. Yeah, he's
thicker. Right, he's thicker than people realize.
It's kind of like a mini tight end. Like you took like an image of a tight end and just shrank it down.
Because remember, Wan'Dale played running back at one point too.
Right.
So.
Yeah. This kid will find his niche in the NFL, but it wouldn't be with the Giants. I don't think it'd be a good fit with the Giants.
Yeah, agreed. Truth, we're agreeing a lot tonight. What's
going on? I have my gloves ready to go today.
Yeah, right. Oh, well, maybe when we get to the higher guys up, we might disagree a little bit more. We'll see.
Great minds think alike, guys.
That's true.
All right, what about we got to go to we got 2 Texas players to talk about now.
Yeah.
So with Marcus Golden, or I'm sorry, with Matthew Golden, my apologies.
Yeah.
His agility and ball control were the elite features that he possesses that enabled him to ball out. He had Quinn Ewers there throwing him the ball. Dynamic offense with both him and Isaiah Bond being a part of it. Last year, one of my concerns with Neighbors was that, well, he also has Brian Thomas there and an elite quarterback. Like, is he being enabled to a degree that we won't see translate to the NFL? I'm throwing that out the door. Here's just obviously because all three of them balled out, regardless of not having each other. So I'm just going to go after the resume and what I saw and call it what it is. He's a very good wide receiver. Where he does lack, though, is the midfield, mid-route. He's got mid-route running, and then his hands, not the best. There were some drops in there, but want to hear your guys' thoughts. Not to say he hasn't made some great catches, though. He does. But he's got some.
They all do.
Yeah, and I think some of it, listen, Texas is one of the teams that I like, so I watch a lot of their games. Some of the drops on Golden were due to some of the throws by Ewers, but he with the Bond injury, who I know we're going to talk about as well, he really improved his draft stock, in my opinion, because he's a very polished route runner. He's got good instincts. He's very tough, and he plays with confident in his ball skills. So I know you kind of said he's got some drops, but he's very confident in with his ball skills. He is also a tempo route runner, which is again something that's going to help him at the next level. Will translate to the next level for getting separation, getting open. So his comp is Nate Burleson, and I would absolutely take a Nate Burleson type on the Giants. So the two Texas guys I am very high on, with that. But the biggest thing for me is that he plays with an edge, and those are the things that if you want to pair somebody like that with Malik Neighbors, like that's who you want to pair him with. You want two receivers that play with an edge. So that's what I really like about Golden.
Yeah, good speed, right? No question about his speed. Great athlete, and they all great athletes. So I'll be redundant if I keep saying that, but they're all great athletes. Everything you say, Shawnee, about him is true. I mean, he did have the injuries with his, I think it was a ribs, and was it a foot or ankle? I don't remember. Do you guys know if he had?
Who?
With Golden, he had two histories. I think it was his foot and his ribs.
I think yeah. Well,
so I don't know if that's behind him now. He had a good year, so hopefully that is behind him. And another kid, I wouldn't mind seeing him on the other side of Neighbors, but I think it might be taken a little too early for the Giants' liking.
Yeah, I think after what he did with Bond's injury later in the year, I think he did raise his stock up for sure.
And he's definitely going to do good in the combine. I really believe that.
Yeah,
he's going to do well.
I agree.
All right, how do you think he compares to Isaiah Bond? Like, what are the dynamics? We can just go right into him. What are your thoughts on him, his abilities, and what he brought to the table at Texas?
Well, Bond's a smaller player, right? He's more like that. An inch
shorter. He is lighter though, so he's
a good 20 pounds, right?
Yeah, he's like Xavier Worthy, pretty much.
Okay, another kid. I mean, he's even faster. I got 2.4, a 4.28 on him, and he can stretch the field, create separation, all the things you like to say. Good hands, catches the ball in stride, which I like to see. But again, he's a little smaller, not a fit for the Giants, but I think he'll find his a home in the NFL.
So here's the first time where I'm going to disagree with you tonight. I think he could be a good fit for the Giants. Reason being, he does have that elite speed. He is a deep vertical threat. He does create space, and he has that agility and elite speed and agility and explosiveness. He is a good route runner, and he actually is a good run blocker as well. So again, that elite speed, I think, is something we need to keep adding to the Giants, and the fact that he is a vertical threat, because we are going to have a quarterback that can do that now, or isn't afraid to do it. I think he would be a good fit. I know the size, again, 5'11" or whatever he is, but to me, he's another Xavier Worthy, and I think he could be a good fit, especially if you got to get him in the later rounds. It all depends on where he's going to go. if he goes higher, but I do like him as a fit.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking, if he gets into day 3, mid day 3, now you're looking at a guy who it could be a steal, because I got him as a round 2 projection, and he played a lot more. He played a lot more slot, didn't he, with Texas?
They used them all over the place.
Moving around.
Yeah, they moved him around. They played inside, outside, because he was their vertical threat. He was their deep threat. So they had him all over. Again, if he's going round 2, yeah, I mean, I don't see the Giants drafting him, but as far as like being able to fit into that system, I think he would be a great complement to Neighbors.
All right. Well, what about Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State? Here's an interesting story with the dude. He actually had a more productive sophomore year at Ohio State than he did this past season, right? He does have an injury history, and that impacted it. We're talking about a school. He was a top wide receiver recruit when he went to Ohio State. Ohio State is a very good factory for wide receiver talent because they all enabled each other to succeed. Both years, the better wide receiver. This past year, I'm going to draw a blank on his name because we're not going over him because he's like 17 years old. And then the year before, it was Marvin Harrison Jr., right? So pretty interesting that he was working that role despite being very talented himself. Now, did he have those edges in his talent ability that put him at that level? Maybe not. That's why we're talking about him here. But, here's a guy that was a wide receiver 2 with all these traits. I'm actually curious to what he can do at the next level because he did have a lot of red zone targets and would execute very well in those regards. His body control and his catch radius were phenomenal. Route running is elite. And yeah, the system itself, just playing for Ohio State and having all those good wide receivers may have actually held him back from being a wide receiver 1, whereas he would be a wide receiver 1 at just about every other school outside of maybe LSU, right? So that's really what it comes down to. He's not, the injury history is going to impede him, but want to hear your guys' thoughts on him.
Johnny, you go again.
All right, so I can't believe I'm going to say this because he plays for Ohio State, but this is a guy I would love to see on the Giants. I think he's a perfect complement to Malik Neighbors. He can play inside, outside, which I know Dabo likes to move his receivers around so they're not always in one spot. He is strong and physical. What I really like is that he has good zone awareness, so he understands where to find the holes in the zone, how to get open. He has the Jackson Smith and Jigba comp, which I think is an excellent comp. And I do believe, when you talk about, you brought up kind of who the wide receiver 1's there. So here's a guy that can come in and be okay being a wide receiver 2 role because he's done it with Marvin Harrison Jr. and now he's freshman, right? And has benefited greatly from it and knows how to utilize it, and the production will be good. So it kills me. Again, I can't saying this about an Ohio State guy, but it's a guy that I would love to see on the Giants. He's going to be a round 2 guy. I doubt he drops. So I think he'll be out of their range. But stranger things have happened. I said the same thing last year about Tyler Nubin. I thought he was out of the Giants' range, and he ended up on the Giants. So, but yeah, I'm very, very high in Egbuka.
Yeah, the kid. Yeah, I mean, gosh, how could you not like him? He got great speed, great hands, runs good routes. I mean, what more do you want from a wide receiver? And Ohio State, I mean, you can't go wrong drafting an Ohio State wide receiver. Just look at them in the NFL.
Yeah.
Look how well they do in the NFL.
Harrison Jr. I mean, there's so many.
Terry McLaughlin over in Washington. McLaren. I mean, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
So you can't go wrong. And then Sean's right; he won't be there. Or he probably would be there in the Giants pick in the second round. But I don't know if the Giants would pick a wide receiver that early.
All right, moving on to Jackson Dart's number 1 wide receiver, Trey Harris. This guy's a really phenomenal wide receiver, and we're starting to get in the range where I would not be surprised in the slightest if this guy slips into the first. I'd imagine he's probably going to be at the later end of it, but he's projecting in that range. Again, we're dealing with a dude that has phenomenal body control, fluid movement. He's a true number 1 wide receiver at Ole Miss with great athletic and dynamic abilities. The route tree has been criticized about this guy for being a little bit limited. But Sean, want to hear your thoughts, or if you even agree with that last comment, because I'm getting sensitive of that as time goes on. I'm getting way more sensitive of that with any criticism, but perhaps it's not nearly as much of a concern as other people are making it out to be.
I didn't see anything there. Now, and here's what again, he's not going to be in Giants range, but when you talk about a comp, he's Devontae Parker comp, and that's really good. And I've said this a few times tonight, and I'll continue to emphasize this. He's a hands catcher. He catches the ball with his hands. He doesn't use his body. He does control his pace and tempo, which is, again, what translates to the next level of being success, because you can't just be a one-speed route runner. So I do like that, but no, I haven't seen anything where it says he was limited a route runner. And he does have strong hands. I mean, so yeah. A lot of things, he's physical. He's got great field awareness. So these are all things I do think translate. So unfortunately, he's going to go as high as he is. But yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah, and he's probably going to go to, if he goes in the late first, he's probably going to go to a good team. Like, here's a guy that if the Kansas City Chiefs get
Kansas City.
Really well
Kansas City.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They can double dip. They'll double dip. They got one last year. They'll get another one this year.
Yep.
Yeah, great body control with him. I did see that he has a limited route tree. I did see that in one of my websites that I look at the scouting reports. But, I mean, when I watch him on film, it looks like he's running multiple routes. I don't see that. But, I'm not going to argue with the experts. But, late first round pick here. If he slips to early twos, it's possible. But I still don't think the Giants are going to go that early with a wide receiver.
Yeah. We're getting into territory. Obviously, when we get to Travis Hunter, we talk about that because there's a little bit of a caveat there. But really, the next two guys were out of range for any of them, right? But still got to talk about them and talk about the talent level, what they bring.
Yeah,
yeah, of course.
And none less than Luther Burden here out of Missouri. So Missouri's run a pretty good program the last few years, despite being an SEC team that doesn't exist in a state that generally produces a ton of football talent. And previously, the talent would just flee the state. But Luther Burden is a St. Louis kid through and through. And his abilities and his resume at Missouri is very impressive. His acceleration is phenomenal off the ball. And we were talking about that with a lot of the running backs last week. They were doing an excellent job. And he does a very, very good job of running all the different types of routes and breaks tackles better than a lot of the running backs do. So he's a very athletic, very chippy, very physical wide receiver, and I like that. He does have some drops, though, a little higher, worth noting. But what were your guys' opinions on him?
He's got he's a running back playing wide receiver, really. He's got the build of a running back, very thick legs, good athlete, can catch the ball, good speed. He runs like a 4.40. Great separation, all those are little intangibles you like to see. Of course, when he catches the ball, he's got good, very elusive when he's in the open field running. Quality player, and again, he'll be a first round pick.
Yeah, he's a slot guy, a yak guy. He's got good stop ability. And interesting enough, he would be a great fit for the Giants because he is a Stephon Diggs type. So, he would be there. But yeah, and he's great with the option routes underneath. So, again, he would be a great fit for the Giants. But yeah, no way he'll be there for them. But yeah, he's one of the 5 receivers that Jeremiah had in his top 50.
Yeah, that makes sense. And he's being projected all over the place. Some mocks have even had him top 12. And when I say top 12, like at 12.
Right.
He's not going much higher than that. But, he's probably chalked up as the second best wide receiver in the draft. All right, so then the next guy we have to go on, this is the last true wide receiver in the draft before we get to Hunter and discuss him. Tetiora McMillan out of Arizona. Yeah, look, I mean, this guy's 6'5", he's 212, but his movement and his maneuverments are very fluid. He makes it look very easy. He's got a great catching radius. He's just a truly effective wide receiver one. No doubt he'll be the top wide receiver, the first true wide receiver taken in the draft. So I'm very curious to see where he ends up. Speed isn't necessarily perfect with him, but again, we know the difference between speed on field and speed at the 40-yard dash, and he defines that. And then the only other thing that he struggles with a little bit is when he's dealing with a very physical cornerback, he doesn't play as effectively. Obviously, that's going to be the case with a lot of these guys, but was especially the case for him. But really, he is a terrific all-around wide receiver. Giants are certainly not going to get him. I couldn't imagine a world where they would. But I like for all the team. Like if we got a quarterback last year and then we needed to get a wide receiver this year, then he would have been the guy. So want to hear your guys' take on him.
Yes, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, he's an outside guy. He's smooth and easy. He does, even on film, though, he does lack that elite burst. Yep. He is more of a 50-50 ball guy because of his size. He is physical, though. That's the one thing where his strength and physicality is the strength of his game. He's a Drake London type, which is pretty good. And again, most of the research, and I listen, I'm very biased. I trust Daniel Jeremiah in his analysis of players. So this is coming a lot from him. Is that it is that strength and physicality and that Drake London type. He's got obviously with his size, he's got a great catch radius, so it does make him a weapon. But the fact that he is smooth and easy is nice. I like that.
Yeah. Check them all off. What you just said, Shawnee. This kid, I could see him going. You mentioned like you don't know where he's going to go, Spartan. He can go as early as 4, I think, to New England, or he can even go. Even the Jets could take him at 7. I'd be shocked if he last past the Jets. I would be shocked. So
you think the Jets would take him with all the receivers they have?
I think they will. I think they will. Or if Graham is there, I would probably take Graham. I would.
Yeah.
I like the trenches, but I don't know. I'd be shocked if this kid gets past 7 or 8 in the draft. He's going to be a top 10 pick. He has to be.
I could see the Raiders doing it if they don't go quarterback.
Yeah, they don't have anybody
They
there.
stay at 6. If they stay at 6, yeah, they could get him.
I know the Bears need an offensive lineman. I mean, I could see them doing it too. 49ers are there at 11. And then, I mean, Sean is the one that's going to draw. I already know this is going to happen. The Ginty with the Cowboys. It's going to be. I mean, that's the last thing I want to see, but we know what's going to happen there.
Yeah, if anybody says Cowboys, it's Ginty. Like that is a typical Cowboys pick.
Wouldn't you love it if he goes a little bit earlier, like between like the first few picks before Dallas picks? Dallas picks what, at 15? Right? They pick at 15. They're Dallas is at 12?
Yeah. They kind of do this. They kind of do this strange thing, and it's kind of funny, right? With the Cowboys, like for 2 years they're always good, and then for 1 year they just have a horrendous season, or maybe it's 3 years good, 1 year terrible, and they get some top pick, and then just kind of go back to being good. It's a very weird dynamic in Dallas. But look at the last 15 years there.
Yeah, I mean he would be the perfect pick for them.
Yeah. I know we're going a little off the rails here, but
all right, let's go with.
You're wondering what keeps me up at night. All right, guys, we are.
Here comes the big debates. Here we go.
Yeah,
here comes the big debates, right?
Yeah, I got my hot take already.
Is he a wide receiver? Is he a cornerback? Is he both? Can he actually play both at the NFL? Would he play one more than the other? If he's just a pure wide receiver for this episode, we'll talk about his cornerback skills when we get there. Would he be the best wide receiver in the draft if he was just a wide receiver? I didn't know what to expect until I started watching more of his tape at wide receiver. I am going to go as far as to say I actually do think he is the best wide receiver in the draft because of everything he can do. Guys, and we're talking about breaking the 40-yard time record. I think he's going to do it. His ability to maneuver is cold. Got me earlier. I said maneuverments. It's not a word. This guy gets yak. He gets contested balls. He's an incredible wide receiver. He can really do it all. I'd be very curious to see what the case would have been if he just played wide receiver and not played cornerback.
Well, watch his cornerbacking ability right now.
Yeah. He just has natural.
Here we go.
That's our wide receiver. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, that's a wide receiver right there. I think he's the best wide receiver in the draft. I just don't like but he's going in as a corner. That shakes things up. Want to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you find him to be that valid wide receiver? If so, would you rank him ahead of McMillan?
All right, Shawnee, you will have the honors of going first because I know how you feel about him.
All right. Well, here's the thing. He's not said where he's going, and some other a lot of research I've done list him like Daniel Jeremiah has him as a wide receiver going into the draft. He's got him as number 2 overall on his big board, I think.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about absolutely he'd be the number 1 wide receiver in this draft. I'd also say he's the number 1 cornerback in this draft as well. For a number of reasons why I say this. Not only does he have the elite speed, he's got the elite body control, he's got elite hands. He is very creative in his releases to get separations. He's smooth, he's an athletic playmaker, but his football IQ is really, to me, off the charts. And that's what sets him apart from everybody else. And that's why I do think he is the number 1 wide receiver, and I think he is the number 1 cornerback in the draft as well. Can he do it the next level? I don't know. But if I'm going to put my money on somebody to do it, I'm going to put it on him. Where I would utilize him, I think, because if you go where the money is, get drafted as a wide receiver, you're going to make more money as a wide receiver, and then you can be used as a DB in certain situations. So, but I could see him going the other route where, he went the Deion route where Deion played, he played corner, and then they used him in select packages as a wide receiver. But yeah, there's no doubt to me, looking at everybody's in this draft, he's the number 1 wide receiver, in this draft, if he was wide receiver only.
Yeah, if he was, but he wasn't, right? He wasn't. So, I don't think he knows what he's going to do. And I think it all depends on who drafts him, right? What they intend. And they better figure it out before they draft him, because you don't want to misuse this kid and ruin him, That's what I worry about. They're going to ruin this kid because they're not sure what they want to do with him. I'm not going to ever argue with you about his talent level. The guy's immensely talented. It's off the charts. But I just worry about how the team that's going to draft him, they better have a clear-cut idea how they're going to use him. Else they could ruin him or delay his growth.
I just don't want to see him go to a dysfunctional team. That's the last thing I want for this dude. I really hope he ends up in a system that knows how to utilize him, because he will be a phenomenal player.
Yeah, and he's not going to be able to do what he does in college at the pro level. His body will never withstand the rigorous pounding of a 17-game schedule.
Yeah,
the amount of times, and he's going to have to pick one or the other, the position, and play the other in a more of a package deal way of systems. So if it's going to be wide receiver, that's fine. I think he'll be a very good wide receiver. If it's a cornerback, you kind of worry about his size, right? He's kind of built like Flock, about the same size as Flock. So you worry about size, but he's got a heart, plays tough. So, it all depends on where he goes. I think that's the key for him.
But true, at the end of the day, if he was just a wide receiver, would you have him over McMillan?
Yeah, but it wouldn't be like a big gap. I think it would be. Yeah. I think he is the best wide receiver. But I know Sean had an argument about generation, the word generation. And, my definition of generation is someone who has a big gap, separation between him and the next guy. When we talked about Lawrence Taylor coming out of the draft, who was the next linebacker coming out? Nobody knows who that was, because it wasn't even close. So, he's going to be a good player, yes.
Here's what go ahead. I'm sorry, Truth.
No, go ahead.
I would say I'll get to my generational take in a minute, but I do think there is a big gap between him and McMillan. I think Hunter will be right up there, because I think there's a big gap between McMillan and last year's wide receiver class as well.
I agree with that. Significant.
Yeah. So I do think Hunter, for me, would be right up there with those top 3 from last year if he was just wide receiver only. The fact that he's putting up the numbers and doing what he's doing offensively and defensively, playing the amount of snaps he's playing on both sides of the ball, I think is incredible. For me, generational, and why when the Titans said we're not going to miss out on a generational pick, I think he's generational because nobody at the college level has ever done what he's done. He's a once-in-a-generation player to be able to do that at the college level. Now, can he do it at the NFL level? I don't know, but I think he can be generational on either side of the ball. But to me, again, he's generational because the last person I saw play significant amount of snaps on offense and defense was Gordy Lockbaum back with Holy Cross back in the early 90s?
87?
Yeah, whatever it was. And he didn't even do what Travis Hunter is doing. Like Travis Hunter is doing something that I haven't seen anybody ever do in my lifetime, or even heard about anybody doing. So for me, that's why I think he's generational, to be able to be high producing at corner and wide receiver at a top, a Big Five, a top 5 conference. That to me, that's huge. So that's why, again, for me, I think he's generational
because he can do both, right? Like Jabril Peppers did do both, but he wasn't elite at either, right? Whereas, he appears like he certainly could be. That's why Shadur is Deion's son, but Hunter is Deion's prodigy. Like that is what Deion saw in himself, and that's kind of what Deion was, right? He was able to do both.
Yeah,
and so he kind of like took
in. Not like that though. I agree with that.
Deion couldn't do that. Although Deion was a great punt returner in college, he just didn't do it. He wasn't a receiver back then. He did some things in the NFL there for a while. I think with Travis, because he also did it from day one as a freshman at Jackson State. So he's been doing the same thing for 3 years to be able to do this. So Jackson State and then Colorado for 2 years. It's just impressive to me. Again, I don't see anybody that does it. And some of his stats on the defensive side of the ball are lower because teams literally won't throw at him, because when they do, he'll intercept them. Right. So that's just kind of my take on him. I'd love him on the Giants, but Giants need somebody else, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you had to decide, if you were the head coach, Shawnee, and you got Travis Hunter, would you make him which position primary would you want to put him?
So if it was me, what I would do is I would use him as a DB and then use him in packages on offenses as a wide receiver.
Okay.
But I think he could go the other way. I think he's just as talented. It's just, for me, I think what he does on the defensive side of the ball, I always, even though I was an offensive guy, I always steered more towards defense. So with him being such a good corner it could save on his body, playing on defense first and then being used on offense in packages. I think that's the way where he can play both sides of the ball in the NFL.
So you think it's easier, and I don't know this answer, so I'm not trying to trick you. You think it's easier to play corner and do packages in wide receiver in the NFL than it is the other way around?
I do, yeah. Especially with how the NFL is going right now and things are there. Like, I think you can as a corner, because listen, let's be realistic. He is Deion's protege, and what did Deion always said? I never got paid to tackle. So I think you can get away with it. And then on the receiver side, because you're dishing out the punishment as opposed to receiving the punishment that you are if you were a wide receiver, and you're taking blind. You could take heavy shots over the middle, hard hits over the middle, things you're not seeing. On defense, you can control things a little bit more with the type of punishment that you put on your body. So that's why I think if you go defense more majority, and then offense and packages will allow him to do that.
Yeah, and I think when they go through the interview process throughout the combine, the draft, the teams are going to have to be very upfront with this kid, and hear him out and give their take, because they can't screw this up. They got to put him in the right situation. That's the only thing I worry about. I'm not worried about his talent level.
We'll discuss too about his ability to play cornerback when we go over the secondary.
Yeah, we're going to go over that.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, guys, go out there and watch his wide receiver tape. Even though he's lining up to be a secondary player, he's going to be cornerback probably. He's an elite wide receiver. He truly is. So let's get on to I want to ask you guys each the same question and just want to hear your different answer. Of all the dudes we did not talk about tonight, who is your favorite sleeper or honorable mention wide receiver?
Go ahead, Truth. You got the honor here this time.
Well, there's a few guys. All right, there's a few guys I like that. We have 6 honorable mentions, And there's a few guys I like. I like the kid out of Illinois, the kid Pat Bryant.
That was mine.
I like him.
I agree.
Like him. And I mentioned the other kid before, Dante Thornton, Tennessee. Didn't have a big sample of touches and stuff, but his production was like 26 yards per catch. So he's a big kid, got good speed, vertical, stretches the field. Those are my two.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw out three, but they'll be quick, and two of which are because if I think we're gonna draft Shedeur Sanders, then I want them to get one of his receivers from Colorado. So Jimmy Horn, who's done really well at the Senior Bowl this week, great route runner, really showing some things out there. I think Will Shepard is another guy that could be a nice pick for the Giants with there. And a guy that I'm going to throw out as a name, Nick Nash out of San Jose State. Great production going on there.
What's that noise?
It's Zach with the sound effects now. Because
what the heck?
anytime there's a good take, he does the sound effect.
Yeah, Nash has good numbers. He has good numbers. Can't argue with that.
Yeah, the production. And I think if you produce at any level, that can transfer over to the next level. So I think that's a guy to keep an eye out, be a sleeper on. But again, for the Giants specifically, I'm looking at, if they take Shedeur, I'm looking at Jimmy Horn or Will Shepard to bring on the team.
Shepard makes a lot of sense, Shawnee.
Yeah.
I'm going to give one more too. I like Nash. I like your take there too with bringing one of the Colorado wide receivers. Ricky White, this is just because he was actually a Michigan State Spartan. He single-handedly in 2020 took down Michigan. It was unbelievable. He had like 270 yards. And then he transferred to UNLV and actually, kind of rebuilt himself there. Just curious to see where he ends up in the NFL. Again, he's an undrafted free agent probably, and we'll see how that translates. But I agree with you on Pat Bryant. I do like his work at Illinois, more of a defensive-focused team. But he did have really good production over there, 6'3", 190, good frame, good attributes. So curious to see how that ends up too. Again, we can't get all 30 guys that are probably going to go in one night, but we throw out a lot of names that are going to be interesting to track throughout the process.
But you know what? We're going to have a good UDFA of wide receivers. Yeah. We're going to have that's one position that I see running back, a good bunch of kids in that who don't get drafted in 7 rounds. So, just because they don't pick them in 7 rounds doesn't mean they're not going to get a good kid.
Agreed.
In the free agent phase.
Yeah. I again, I know we kind of talked about this earlier, but I do think if they go receiver in free agency that they won't do a receiver in the draft and fill other needs in the draft. If they bring in that vet wide receiver, whether it's, a Higgins, a Godwin, or Stephon Diggs, somebody of that nature they can bring in. I think there's too many other holes to double dip with free agency in the draft with wide receiver. Just my opinion on that.
No, and I agree earlier. You mentioned real quick, you said it quickly. In round 2, you're looking at D-line. I agree with that. I think they got to get – it's such a deep especially in the early part. The defensive line is very deep. They got some good players who could come in and play on day one.
Yep. No, absolutely. So I think that's the route to go with that. I mean, because I don't think in free agency, I don't think there's a couple guys. So I don't know if they're going to want to do that in free agency when they can use it on other ones where positions aren't as strong in the draft.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we're coming to the end of the show. We had a great one, Sean. We're going to have you on more frequently than all the other guests throughout the rest of the offseason. So we're looking forward to it. Woo! Appreciate you coming on. Guys, we'll see what happens with the wide receivers and if the Giants end up taking any of these guys at any point. But regardless, we need a wide receiver too. Let's see how they do it. Until then, have a great rest of the week. Go Chiefs.